You're in a conversation. Everything seems normal on the surface, but underneath, there's a war raging in your mind. Did I say something wrong? Why did they look at me like that? They probably think I'm stupid. I shouldn't have spoken up. And within seconds, you've created an entire narrative. A story where you're the fool, the outsider, the one who doesn't belong. You've taken a neutral glance and transformed it into evidence of your deepest fear, that you're not enough. But here's what's really happening, and it's far more disturbing than you think. Your insecurity didn't just interpret that moment, it created it. That look you caught, it might have been nothing, but your insecurity needed it to be something. So it became something. And now, because you believe it's something, you'll act differently. You'll withdraw. You'll overcompensate. You'll create the very rejection you feared. This isn't just anxiety. This is reality creation. And you're doing it every single day. Carl Jung understood this. He said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But he was pointing to something even deeper. Everything we fear about ourselves, we project onto the world. And then the world reflects it back. You think your insecurities are just feelings, uncomfortable thoughts you carry around, but they're not. They're architects. They're building your reality, brick by brick, interaction by interaction, choice by choice. And the most terrifying part? You can't see it happening, because you're inside the structure they're building. Right now, as you're listening to this, your insecurities are at work. They're filtering what you hear. They're deciding what resonates. They're determining whether this message is for people like you, or if you're somehow different, somehow worse, somehow beyond help. That's their job, to keep you safe by keeping you small, to protect you from rejection by rejecting yourself first, to shield you from failure by ensuring you never truly try. But what if I told you that understanding this mechanism, really understanding it, could change everything? What if the very insecurities that have been shaping your reality could become the keys to reshaping it? Stay with me, because we're about to expose the invisible script that's been running your life. Your insecurities are not passive. They're not just sitting in your mind, making you feel bad. They're active agents, constantly at work, sculpting your reality with the precision of a master craftsman. Think about your deepest insecurity, the one you don't even like to name. Maybe it's about your intelligence, your appearance, your worth, your ability to be loved. Now watch what it does. If you believe you're not smart enough, you'll hesitate before speaking in meetings. That hesitation will be noticed. Others will start talking over you. Soon, you're known as the quiet one, the one without ideas. Your insecurity has created the very reality it feared. If you believe you're not attractive enough, you'll avoid eye contact. You'll shrink your presence. You'll apologize for taking up space. And people will treat you exactly as you've trained them to, as someone invisible. Your insecurity has manifested its own prophecy. This isn't metaphysical. It's psychological physics. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this clearly. He wrote, "The thought is not merely the thought, but the thinker." Your insecurities aren't just thoughts you have. They're entities that think through you. They make decisions. They interpret data. They create strategies, and they're brilliant at their job. Your insecurity about intelligence, it will find evidence everywhere. It will remember every mistake you've made while forgetting every success. It will compare your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. It will whisper that everyone else finds things easy while you struggle. Your insecurity about being lovable, it will sabotage relationships before they can disappoint you. It will test people until they fail. It will interpret love as pity and attention as manipulation. It will make you either cling too tightly or push away too forcefully. But here's where it gets truly insidious. Your insecurities don't just shape how you see reality. They shape reality itself. Through something Jung called the participation mystique, the unconscious identity between subject and object. You become what you fear you are, not because it was true, but because you believed it so deeply that you made it true. You acted from that belief. You made choices from that belief. You interpreted everything through that belief. And slowly, invisibly, inexorably, you built a life that confirmed that belief. The shy person who believes they're boring becomes boring because they never risk being interesting. The talented person who believes they're fraud becomes fraudulent because they never claim their genuine gifts. The loving person who believes they're unlovable becomes hard to love because they won't let anyone close enough to prove otherwise. This is the architecture of insecurity, and most people never see the blueprint. They think life is happening to them. They think they're victims of circumstance, of bad luck, of other people's judgments. They can't see that they're living inside a structure they built themselves, bar by bar, limitation by limitation. But you're starting to see it now, aren't you? Starting to recognize the familiar walls. Starting to notice how perfectly your life confirms your deepest fears. That's not coincidence. That's creation. And if you created it, you can uncreate it. But first, you need to understand how deep this really goes. If this content resonates with you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Every insecurity has a birth story, a moment when a part of you decided it wasn't safe to be itself. Maybe you were 7, excited about your drawing, running to show your parent. But they were busy, stressed. They brushed you off. Not now. And in that moment, a part of you concluded, what I create doesn't matter. I don't matter. Maybe you were 13, finally working up the courage to talk to your crush. But they laughed, not even cruelly, just surprised. And a part of you decided, I'm not the type of person people want. I should stay invisible. Maybe you were 5, crying because you were scared. But someone told you, big kids don't cry. Be strong. Stop being a baby. And a part of you learned, my feelings are wrong. I am wrong. These weren't just bad moments. They were reality-defining moments. Because here's what happened next. And this is where conventional psychology often misses the deeper truth. You didn't just feel rejected. You created a strategy, a way to never feel that pain again. If showing your creativity led to dismissal, you'd hide it. But hiding it meant never developing it, which meant when you finally did share something, it was underdeveloped, uncertain, which led to more dismissal, which confirmed your belief. If approaching someone led to humiliation, you'd stop approaching. But not approaching meant never learning how, which meant when someone approached you, you'd be awkward, uncertain, which would push them away, which confirmed your belief. Do you see the loop? Jung called this a complex, an emotionally charged group of ideas or images. But it's more than that. It's a living system, a self-fulfilling prophecy that feeds on its own confirmation. And here's the truly painful part. You become addicted to the confirmation. Because as horrible as it feels to have your insecurities confirmed, it's also familiar, safe, predictable. Better the devil you know than the angel you don't. So you unconsciously seek situations that will confirm your beliefs. You're drawn to people who will treat you exactly as you expect to be treated. You create dynamics that replay your original wound. The person who believes they're not worth listening to will partner with someone who doesn't listen. The person who believes they're only valuable for what they do will find bosses who exploit them. The person who believes love is conditional will attract partners who make them perform for affection. And each confirmation deepens the groove, makes the pattern stronger, makes the insecurity feel more true, until you can't imagine any other reality. This is what Nietzsche meant when he said, "When you stare into the abyss stares back." You've been staring at your insecurities for so long, they've become your entire view. You can't see around them, over them, through them. They've become your reality. But, and this is crucial, they were never true. They were just decisions. Decisions made by a younger you, a scared you, a you that didn't have all the information. The 7-year-old who decided their creativity didn't matter? They didn't know their parent had just been fired. The 13-year-old who decided they weren't desirable? They didn't know their crush liked them too and laughed from nervousness. The 5-year-old who decided their feelings were wrong? They didn't know the adult was projecting their own emotional suppression. But the decision stuck and became a filter. And that filter became a world. The question is, what world are you living in? And more importantly, whose decision was it? Now we dive into the mechanism, the actual process by which your insecurities bend reality around themselves. First, there's selective attention. Your insecurity literally changes what you're capable of seeing. If you believe you're not intelligent, your brain will filter out every moment of brilliance. That clever solution you found? Luck. That insight you shared? Obvious. That compliment on your thinking? They're just being nice. But let someone make a joke about something you didn't know. Let someone correct you even gently. Let someone else have a better idea. Your insecurity will grab that moment and engrave it in stone. See? Proof. You're not smart enough. This isn't conscious. Your brain is trying to protect you by confirming what it already knows. Because if your beliefs are wrong, then you've been living in a false reality. And that's terrifying. So your brain would rather live in a painful reality that makes sense than risk the chaos of uncertainty. Second, there's behavioral confirmation. Your insecurity changes how you act, which changes how others respond, which confirms your insecurity. Watch this in real time. You walk into a party believing nobody wants you there. So you stand near the wall. You avoid eye contact. You give short answers when people try to engage. You look at your phone. You leave early. And then you go home thinking, see, nobody wanted me there. But what really happened? Your insecurity made you act like someone who didn't want to be there. So people gave you space. They respected what seemed like your desire for solitude. They confirmed the reality you were creating, not because they rejected you, but because you rejected yourself first. Michel de Montaigne understood this. He wrote, "There is nothing so unsociable and sociable as man, the one by his vice, the other by his nature." Your insecurities make you unsociable. They create the very isolation they claim to protect you from. Third, there's projection. Your insecurity doesn't just change how you see yourself. It changes how you see everyone else. If you believe you're a burden, you'll see annoyance in every pause, exhaustion in every sigh, resentment in every boundary. If you believe you're boring, you'll see boredom in every glance away, disinterest in every subject change, politeness in every smile. If you believe you're unworthy, you'll see pity in every kindness, manipulation in every compliment, eventual abandonment in every connection. You're not seeing people. You're seeing mirrors of your own fear. And here's what's truly tragic. By treating people as if they feel about you the way you feel about yourself, you often create exactly that feeling. The person who constantly apologizes for existing makes others uncomfortable. The person who assumes they're unwanted makes others feel rejected. The person who believes they're a burden becomes burdensome through their constant need for reassurance. This is the reality distortion field of insecurity. It doesn't just interpret reality, it actively shapes it. But there's a fourth mechanism, the most powerful of all: energetic resonance. Jung talked about the collective unconscious, but this goes even deeper. You broadcast your insecurities like a frequency, and you attract people and situations that match that frequency. The person who believes they deserve punishment finds punishers. The person who believes they're meant to be alone finds isolation. The person who believes they're not enough finds people who agree, not because the universe is cruel, but because we seek what's familiar. We recognize our own wounds in others. We're comfortable with people who confirm our stories about ourselves. Two people with matching insecurities will find each other across a crowded room. The one who needs to be needed will find the one who needs to need. The one who fears abandonment will find the one who abandons. The one who believes they're too much will find the one who can't handle them. And together, they'll create a reality that proves both their insecurities right. This is how insecurity shapes not just your reality, but your entire relational field. You become a magnet for exactly what you fear, precisely because you fear it. The distortion is complete. You're living in a world created by your wounds. And every day, that world whispers, "See, I told you so." But here's what no one tells you about insecurities. You're addicted to them. Not addicted to the pain. No one wants that. Addicted to the certainty, to the story, to the identity they provide. Because as painful as it is to believe you're not enough, it's also safe. It's known. It excuses you from the terror of trying and failing. It protects you from the vulnerability of hoping. It saves you from the devastation of dreaming. If you already know you're not smart enough, you don't have to risk discovering your limits. If you already know you're unlovable, you don't have to risk real intimacy. If you already know you're a failure, you don't have to risk actual failure. Your insecurity is a preemptive strike against life, a way of rejecting yourself before the world can do it for you. And that feels like control. Aldous Huxley wrote about this in Brave New World, how people can become addicted to their own oppression. But he was talking about external systems. What's happening here is even more insidious. You've become addicted to your own internal oppressor. Watch how you feed this addiction. You seek out content that confirms your fears. Articles about how hard life is for people like you. Statistics that prove your disadvantages. Stories of people who failed despite trying. You surround yourself with people who share your limitations, who bond over mutual complaint, who reinforce the impossibility of change. You sabotage opportunities that might challenge your story. You show up late to the interview for the job you know you won't get. You pick fights with the partner who sees your worth. You quit projects just before they might succeed, because success would shatter your identity. And you've been building that identity for so long, you don't know who you'd be without it. This is the hidden secondary gain of insecurity. It gives you an identity. I'm the person who, an excuse. I would, but a community. People who understand. A story. This is why and giving that up, that's scarier than staying in pain. Because at least the pain is yours. At least the limitation is familiar. At least the story makes sense. Jung saw this clearly. He said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Because complete self-acceptance means accepting your power, your potential, your responsibility to become who you really are. And that's terrifying. Because if you're capable of more, then you have to face the grief of all the years you lived as less. If you're worthy of love, then you have to feel the pain of all the love you rejected. If you're actually intelligent, creative, valuable, then you have to mourn the life you could have lived. So you cling to your insecurities like life rafts, not realizing they're made of lead, not seeing that they're not keeping you afloat, they're pulling you under. The addiction runs deep, deeper than thought. It's in your nervous system. Your body is calibrated to your insecurity. Your breathing patterns match it. Your posture embodies it. Your muscle tension holds it. When you start to break free, your body rebels. Anxiety spikes when you act confident. Panic arises when you receive love. Your system floods with stress when you succeed. Because your body is trying to pull you back to baseline, back to the familiar frequency of not enoughness. back to the devil you know. This is why affirmations often fail, why positive thinking feels fake, why most people return to their old patterns even after breakthrough moments. Because until you address the addiction itself, the attachment to the identity, the investment in the story, the physical calibration to limitation, you're just painting over rust. The structure remains, and structures want to maintain themselves. But what if you could use this same mechanism, this same reality-creating power, to build something new? What if the very force that's been limiting you could liberate you? That's not just possible, it's inevitable, once you understand the game. Now here's where it gets really twisted. Your insecurities don't just shape your reality. They shape how others see you, but not in the way you think. You believe people see your flaws, your inadequacies, your unworthiness. But what they actually see is your projection of those things. They don't see that you're stupid. They see that you believe you're stupid. They don't see that you're unlovable. They see that you believe you're unlovable. They don't see that you're weak. They see that you believe you're weak. And here's the brutal truth. People treat you the way you treat yourself. If you constantly apologize for your existence, people will start to wonder what you're apologizing for. If you constantly minimize your contributions, people will start to value them less. If you constantly expect rejection, people will feel pushed away. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. But your insecurities are shadow made visible. They're advertisements for everything you're trying to hide. The person who constantly jokes about being stupid is announcing their intelligence insecurity. The person who constantly mentions their achievements is announcing their worth insecurity. The person who constantly tests their partner's love is announcing their abandonment insecurity. You think you're hiding. You're actually broadcasting. And people respond not to what you're trying to hide, but to the energy of the hiding itself, to the anxiety, the desperation, the performance. This creates a feedback loop from hell. You feel insecure about something. You try to hide or compensate for it. People sense the energy of hiding, compensating. They respond to that energy with distance or discomfort. You interpret their response as confirmation of your original insecurity. The insecurity deepens. You're trapped in a prison of your own projection. And the more you struggle to escape, the tighter the bonds become. But here's what's even more painful. You start to attract people who need your insecurity. The person who believes they're worthless attracts those who need someone to devalue. The person who believes they're a burden attracts those who need someone to resent. The person who believes they're meant to be alone attracts those who need someone to abandon. Not consciously, not cruelly, but inevitably. Because we're all walking around with unconscious needs, and insecurities create perfect matches for those needs. Your "I'm not enough" finds their "nothing is ever enough." Your "I don't deserve love" finds their "I can't really love." Your "I'm too much" finds their "I can't handle intensity." And together, you create a reality that proves you both right. This is what makes insecurity so persistent. It's not just in your head. It creates real-world confirmation through the very mechanism of trying to avoid that confirmation. The harder you try to hide your insecurity, the more visible it becomes. The more you compensate for it, the more it defines you. The more you project it, the more it attracts its own evidence. You become a self-fulfilling prophecy, a living confirmation of your deepest fear. And the tragedy? None of it was ever true. It was just a projection that became a reality through the power of believing it was already real. You've been shadowboxing with your own shadow and losing because you can't defeat something that grows stronger every time you fight it. The only way out is through. But through doesn't mean more fighting. It means something far more terrifying. It means acceptance. Here's the paradox that changes everything. The only way to stop your insecurities from shaping your reality is to accept them completely. Not accept that they're true. Accept that they exist. There's a difference between I am unlovable and a part of me believes I'm unlovable. Between I'm not smart enough and I carry a fear of not being smart enough. Between I'm a burden and I sometimes feel like a burden. The first is identification. The second is observation. And observation creates space. Space creates choice. Choice creates new possibility. Jung understood this. He said, "What you resist persists, but what you look at disappears." Not because looking is magic, but because looking changes your relationship to the thing. When you fight your insecurity, you feed it energy. When you hide from it, you give it power. When you deny it, you let it operate unconsciously. But when you turn toward it with curiosity instead of judgment, everything changes. Oh, there's that familiar feeling of not being enough. Hello, old friend. What are you trying to protect me from today? This isn't spiritual bypassing. It's radical honesty. Because here's what happens when you truly accept your insecurities. They stop being monsters and reveal themselves as protectors. Misguided protectors, outdated protectors, but protectors nonetheless. Your not smart enough was trying to protect you from the humiliation of being wrong. Your unlovable was trying to protect you from the devastation of rejection. Your burden was trying to protect you from the guilt of taking up space. These aren't enemies. They're young parts of you, frozen in time, still trying to keep you safe from dangers that no longer exist. And when you see them this way, with compassion instead of contempt, they begin to relax, to update, to realize the war is over. But here's where most people stop. They have a moment of acceptance, feel better, and think they're done. They're not done. They've just begun. Because true integration means going deeper. It means asking, what gift is hidden in this insecurity? Every shadow contains gold. Not smart enough often hides deep wisdom and alternative intelligence. Too emotional often hides profound sensitivity and intuitive gifts. Too much often hides powerful life force and creative energy. Not attractive enough often hides unique beauty that doesn't fit conventional molds. Your insecurities aren't just wounds. They're portals, gateways to parts of yourself you've never fully claimed. The person who integrates not smart enough often discovers multiple intelligences they couldn't see before. The person who integrates unlovable often discovers a capacity for self-love that transforms all their relationships. The person who integrates too much often discovers they're exactly enough for the right people. This is shadow work. This is what Jung meant by individuation, not becoming perfect, becoming whole. And wholeness includes everything: your strength and your weakness, your light and your shadow, your confidence and your insecurity. When you can hold all of it, without judgment, without preference, without resistance, something miraculous happens. You stop needing the world to confirm or deny anything about you, because you're no longer seeking external validation for an internal truth. You're no longer using reality as a mirror for your wounds. You become sovereign, self-contained, complete. And from that place of completeness, you start creating a completely different reality. When you stop creating from your wounds, you start creating from your wholeness. And reality responds differently to wholeness than to wounding. The person creating from not enough attracts scarcity. The person creating from wholeness attracts abundance. The person creating from unlovable attracts rejection. The person creating from wholeness attracts genuine connection. The person creating from I don't belong attracts isolation. The person creating from wholeness attracts community. Not through positive thinking, not through manifestation, through the simple fact that wholeness operates at a different frequency than fragmentation. When you're no longer broadcasting your insecurities, people respond to your presence instead of your pain. When you're no longer projecting your shadows, people see you instead of your projections. When you're no longer creating from wound, you start creating from essence. And essence is magnetic in a way that wound can never be. This doesn't mean you become invulnerable. It means you become authentically vulnerable. There's a difference between the vulnerability of exposure and the vulnerability of openness. Exposure says, "Please don't hurt me where I'm already wounded." Openness says, "Here's who I am, wounds and all." Exposure attracts predators and saviors. Openness attracts equals and companions. Exposure creates drama. Openness creates connection. When you create from wholeness, you stop attracting people who need your brokenness. You stop creating situations that confirm your limitations. You stop building realities that prison you in your past. Instead, you start attracting people who see your wholeness, creating situations that call forth your gifts, building realities that support your becoming. Your insecurities don't disappear, but they stop being in charge. They become information instead of identity, sensations instead of stories, experiences instead of existence. And here's the final truth that changes everything. Your insecurities were never the problem. Your relationship to them was. When you fight them, they fight back. When you accept them, they transform. When you integrate them, they become allies. The very sensitivity that made you feel too emotional becomes your superpower of empathy. The very intensity that made you feel too much becomes your gift of passion. The very difference that made you feel weird becomes your unique contribution. But only when you stop trying to fix yourself and start trying to know yourself. Only when you stop creating from compensation and start creating from completion. Only when you stop letting your insecurities shape your reality and start letting your wholeness create it. This is the alchemy. This is the transformation. This is the path from wounded to whole, from fragmented to integrated, from insecurity-driven to essence-created reality. And it all begins with a simple shift. From I am my insecurities to I have insecurities. From they define me to they inform me. From they limit me to they point me toward my growth edges. Your insecurities haven't been your enemies. They've been your teachers, showing you where you've abandoned yourself, where you've given your power away, where you've believed lies about your nature. Now you can thank them for their service and retire them from their position as reality creators, because you have a new job for that role. Your wholeness, your truth, your integrated, accepted, complete self. That's who's creating your reality now, and that changes everything. So now you know. Your insecurities have been shaping your reality all along, creating the very experiences you feared, attracting the very rejections you expected, building the very limitations you believed in. But now, you also know something else. You have the power to change the architect, not by fighting your insecurities, not by denying them, not by spiritual bypassing or positive thinking your way past them, but by the radical act of acceptance, by the courage of integration, by the alchemy of wholeness. Your wounds shaped your past. They don't have to shape your future, unless you let them. The choice is yours. Will you keep creating from your fragments, or will you start creating from your wholeness? Will you keep letting your insecurities be the architects of your reality? Or will you reclaim that power for your integrated self? The old reality is crumbling anyway. You can feel it. The old stories don't work anymore. The old patterns are exhausting. The old ways of being are dying. Good. Let them die. And in their place, let something new be born. A reality created not from your wounds, but from your wisdom. Not from your fears, but from your fullness. Not from your insecurities, but from your integrated truth. This is your invitation, your initiation, your moment of choice. What reality will you create now? The answer is living in your wholeness, and your wholeness is waiting for you to claim it.